Hello, BookTube. Well, it happened again. I called it quits on the mail, and more mail came. So I thought we'd go through that now and see what we have. The last mail haul, the last mail haul of the week, was joyful for me, but maybe a little bit disappointing for you, because it was two copies of the same book. It's a great book, but that's not very good viewing. So I've positioned the camera as best I can here. Sorry about the tilt. And we'll just see what we have here that might have a little more variety to it than two copies of the exact same book. Okay, all right. This is coming out in the autumn. It's, I think, going to get a lot of press. I think it's going to get a lot of attention. It's by an author who has done nothing but earn credit with me, so that's great. I've talked about that before on this channel. If an author has pleased me with their previous outing, then I'm on board for their next one. They have to displease me. This is When They Come for You: How Police and Government Are Trampling Our Liberties and How to Take Them Back, by David Kirby, who did Death at Seaworld, which is still one of my most read reviews in any venue. So if I remember, I'll leave a link to it down below. That one was about one particular city bus-sized killer whale who had been moved from one facility to another because he was well-known. He had a well-known proclivity for homicide, and this is a totally different subject. This author doesn't have a pet subject. So let's see here. What can we do for the lighting? There we go. Liberty and justice for all is the bedrock of American democracy. But has America betrayed our founders' vision for the nation? In this book, David Kirby explores federal, state, and local violations of basic constitutional rights that should trouble every American, whether liberal, conservative, or libertarian. Free speech, privacy, protection from unreasonable search and seizure, due process, and equal protection under the law are rights that belong to every American citizen, but are being shredded at an alarming rate all across the country. And that's really important, and it's going to be a slight variation from my usual refrain on this channel, because that's not Donald Trump's fault. That's George W. Bush's fault. For militarizing the U.S. government, for putting the U.S. government on a perpetual war footing in which civil liberties were suspended by federal fiat literally in the dead of night. So that now that summary is completely right, and I'm wondering how depressing this will be. The second part of the subtitle, How to Take Them Back, implies that there's a slight hint of maybe optimism in here. That would be great. I think the first step that any American needs to take is to know their rights and assert them every time they are threatened. Every single time. So if you are pulled over, if you are driving down the highway, and you encounter what is now obviously always called a routine traffic stop, there's nothing routine about a traffic stop. You have to stop your car because you have a blockade in front of you, but you do not have to talk to police. You do not have to allow them to search your car. You do not have to pull over. You do not have to do anything like that. All the rest of that is a violation of your constitutional right. You have a constitutional protection against unreasonable search and seizure. So it's on the cop to tell you whether or not, to show you the proof for why their search is reasonable. And it shouldn't happen without a lawyer anyway. And there are many other instances like that. For instance, if you live in a city that has a subway, sometimes there will be random searches on subways. So there'll be a table with police officers at it before the entrance gates, the turnstiles, with the police just routinely telling everybody, all right, form a line, open up your backpack. That is totally illegal. That is totally illegal. And so on and so forth. So, unfortunately, hand in hand with the erosion of these basic rights is the erosion of the public's understanding of what is and isn't legal, and also the hyper-militarization of police. So you have to assess the lay of the land, right? You can, on the one hand, I argue you should certainly assert your rights. If a police officer is trying to tell you you need to do this and it's clearly illegal, on the one hand, I would say you should say calmly, conversationally, politely, I will not do that. That is illegal. What you're asking me to do is illegal. You don't have the authority to do that. And if you want that authority, you're going to have to get a lawyer of your own, go through a judge, and go through my lawyer. It's certainly not going to happen here on a subway platform. On the one hand, I say that. On the other hand, these cops all have military-issue weapons now. So and making a constitutional point on a subway platform on your way to a long workday is not worth your life. And I think that pressure, that understanding, actually guides a lot of these power grabs. Is that the people who are orchestrating them and writing them into procedural manuals are counting on the fact that you will do a cost benefit analysis right there on the spot and say, it outrages me, but it's not worth it. Making a fuss right now is not worth it. That's certainly what people do at airports. Airports are the place where American civil rights are violated thousands of times every single hour of every single day. That is beyond a shadow of a doubt true. It is completely illegal to ask you to take off articles of clothing. Completely illegal to do that, much less to do it in front of other passengers. All of that is just anyway. As you can tell, I'm invested in the subject just as I was invested in the subject of his last book. So I will I will gobble it up, and if there's any chance, I will review it. I would love it if I could review it for a big audience. I reviewed his last one. I have a handful of authors where I'm on their fourth book now. Sometimes more than that. If it's like self-published stuff for Kirkus, I'm on sometimes more than that. Where in addition to all the other critics that they have drawn and just the luck of the draw, they've got me, and I take that seriously. I don't want any author in that position where they just happen to, like one author. I've reviewed him in 3 different venues, and it's 3 consecutive books. I just managed to find him every single time. And when an author is in a situation like that with me, I don't want that author to ever have occasion to say, gee, can't I have somebody else? I want them to feel that I'm being fair every time. So I'm looking forward to this. All right, so that's our first one. Good. Let's move on to this next one. What is this? Oh, goodness. Okay, all right. This is another book from October. And this is an author who will be familiar to almost all of you, I'll bet, on BookTube. This is Imaginary Friend by Stephen Chbosky, the author of The Perks of Being a Wallflower. This is a big new novel from a guy with a hit novel. Always a tricky thing. Let's see here. Yeah, the pub sheet writer starts off by talking about reading Perks of Being a Wallflower for the first time. As it was that kind of book. It took off. And this new book is an epic work of literary horror that raises questions about faith, parenting, and what it means to protect those you love most in an increasingly complex and dangerous world. So a very different kind of book from Perks of Being a Wallflower. Single mother Kate Reese is determined to improve life for her and her son, Christopher, fleeing an abusive relationship in the middle of the night with Christopher at her side. Together they find themselves drawn to the tight-knit community of Mill Grove, Pennsylvania. It's as far off the beaten track as they can get with just one highway in and out of town. At first, it seems like the perfect place to finally settle down. Then Christopher vanishes, and for 6 awful days no one can find him. Then Christopher emerges from the woods at the edge of town, unharmed, but not unchanged. He returns with an imaginary friend, a voice in his head only he can hear, with a mission only he can complete. Build a treehouse in the woods by Christmas, or his mother and everyone in town will face unimaginable peril. A very different, so a departure for this author, coming out in October, on October 1st, and raising one key question. I mean, there are a bunch of key questions. Is it good? Is it well done? Is it convincing? But one key question, the unfair one, that unfortunately will on everyone's mind is, can he write anything and still retain any kind of his following? Will the fans of Perks of Being a Wallflower come to this new book, or did they love that book for what it was alone? And I don't know the answer to that question. I have no idea. I'm going to wait and see. I'm going to wait until October and see. How interesting, though. Because that Perks of Being a Wallflower is very much a cult book. It may be that when fans pick this thing up in the bookstore and read that plot that we just read, they'll say, oh, well, that's not for me. Yeah, I read that book and I loved it. Of course, it was a big foundational part of my reading adolescence, but this doesn't sound anything like that. We shall see. So what is this next one? This is by Peter Gatrell, and it's The Unsettling of Europe. Look at that cover. Look at them crawling along there. With all their worldly goods in suitcases. Oh my. What is that, a bridge or a shipwork of some kind? Wow. This is How Migration Shaped a Continent. So at heart, somewhere along the line, this is going to be a Brexit book. Let's see here. So the pub sheet quotes from eyewitness accounts to immigration, and then says testimonies like these will strike a chord with anyone who has followed the news of people fleeing conflict in the Middle East and Africa in boats across the Mediterranean or the Aegean in search of refuge in Europe. The eyewitnesses above were also looking for a place of safety in Europe, but they belong to a different era. The first describes the efforts of a young Latvian man to evade the advancing Soviet Red Army by crossing the eastern Baltic coast to North Germany at the end of World War II. And the second belongs to an Algerian woman recalling her experiences being transported to France in 1962, along with hundreds of other Harkis, mainly Muslim families who had backed the French state during Algeria's struggle for independence. In this book, historian Peter Gartell argues that every major development in post-war Europe is connected to migration. Oh my. Okay. All right. Well, I assume this comes out in October. I assume this is another October book. No, this is the end of August. Okay, this is much sooner. All right. That is fascinating. Sorry, we're going to be dealing with light issues here because the light is westering finally, and I'm as you know we've spent it together. I spent the whole of the winter in my little book room, and I am now, working with different kinds of possibilities out here for the ergonomics of maybe being able to get work done in some other room than my little book room. I love my little book room, but it's nice to have a little change of pace. So we'll work out the light here. Let's see. We still have some things to go through here. No boxes this time around. I got the boxes out of my system the first time. 2 boxes with the same book in them. But we still have cardboard. We have some cardboard to do. So let's see. Oh, and the first one is a romance. Oh my. And it's a contemporary romance for September. It's a new series. Oh, it's the number one. It's number 1 in a new series. Great. Fantastic. And it's contemporary romance. And like I mentioned yesterday, I had Sarah visit here from Steeped in Books. And she is an enormous romance fan, and she's also a much more adventurous romance reader than I am. If I don't watch myself, I will settle into just reading historical romances, especially Regency romances, just forever, and ignore all the rest of it. And that's not right, because I've encountered a lot of contemporary romance. When I do read them, I end up liking them. Quite a few. If you look at, for instance, on my my book blog, Steve Reads. If you look at the backlogs, I do a year-end best and worst books every year, and for years, romance has been a category. And if you look at my top 10 romances for the previous year, you'll see quite a few contemporary romances. It's not like I don't read them, but it's nice to have a reminder. It's also nice to get them in the mail. So this is the first in a new series, the Wild River series. It's by Jennifer Snow, and it's called An Alaskan Christmas, with a couple of humans and a husky puppy, they are being very, very irresponsible there, because the husky puppy is not on a leash. The husky puppy is just standing there, and would not, of course. A husky puppy would run away and need to be chased. But anyway, it is, after all, fiction. So Jennifer Snow begins a brand new contemporary romance series with her heartwarming novel An Alaskan Christmas, which comes out in late September. How are we going to do for lighting there? You need to see me. You need to see the book. Workaholic top surgeon Erica Sheraton returns to her hometown of Wild River for a mandated vacation, and she expects to spend time reconnecting with her former best friend Cassie. Instead, Erica finds herself drawn to Cassie's older brother and lead member of the Wild River's search and rescue team, Reed Reynolds. Soon, their all too familiar arguing turns into flirting, leading Erica and Reed to question if this vacation fling could become something more lasting. So, in other words, he was the annoying brother of her best friend, only now things have changed. The ground has shifted underneath him. That could be really good. It could be really, really good. So this is Jennifer Snow's debut with Harlequin Books, and the launch of the first in her series, which is set in Wild River, Alaska. So this is a location romance of the type we've mentioned here before, where the location, the town, the whatever, serves almost as another character and a grounding for everything else. And I like that. If it's done well, I really like that. So that's great. This doesn't come out in September, though, so as tempting as it is, I might wait on it just a bit. Let's see what this next one is. Oh, okay. Okay. For those of you who are new to the channel, am I losing ground here? For those of you who are new to the channel, some of you are new to the channel, I noticed, since we vaulted over 6,000 subscribers, and that's fantastic. So it stands to reason there are quite a few of you who are new. First of all, you shouldn't lurk. I have quite a few loyal lurkers. You should sing out in the comments field and let me know you're there. Make your presence known. But for those of you who are new, in addition to, I have two bookworm dreams come true in my current life, aside from being able to write, but aside from being able to get paid to read and write about books, I have two dreams come true. The first one is that I get romances in the mail. I get new romance novels in the mail, which is fantastic. I love them anyway, but to get them in the mail is extra fun. And the other dream come true is that I get Penguin Classics in the mail. And that's even better because I am Penguin Classics' biggest fan. And this is one of their latest ones. This is, let's see here. This is an introduction. This is a debut as a Penguin Classic. This is a best-selling Civil War novel on grief and the afterlife, written through the lens of female empowerment. It's by Elizabeth Stewart Phelps, and it's called The Gates Ajar. We're dealing with the lighting here. Let's see here. This was a groundbreaking Civil War classic that went on to sell over 600,000 copies, making it the second bestseller in 1868 behind Uncle Tom's Cabin. This is from 1868. This edition features an engaging introduction by Elizabeth Duquette and Claudia Stokes, in which they reveal that it was Phelps's early feminist leanings that compelled her to write The Gates Ajar, as she sought to illuminate the trauma faced by women in a time where their emotional experience was seldom recognized or written about. Written in the aftermath of the American Civil War, The Gates Ajar is a heartrending, inspiring meditation on optimism in the face of profound grief. The novel centers on Mary Cabot, an inconsolable New England woman mourning the loss of her beloved brother, Union soldier Royal. Mary worries she will never feel peace again until the arrival of her widowed Aunt Winifred, who shares with Mary the wisdom that guided her through her grief. Winifred offers Mary a groundbreaking view of the afterlife, relieving Mary's pain with a vision of eventual reunion with all those who were lost. As Mary begins to heal, Winifred's message spreads to the community and attracts local adherents who have suffered similar losses in the war. Okay, I confess I have not read this book, nor until this moment have I think, even heard of it. I've probably heard about it, because I've read lots of surveys of Civil War literature, and this would probably have been in them if it was that popular. But this is a May release, and I know that I have not read it, so this is going to blend the two pleasures of reading a Penguin Classic, which is always fun, and reading a new book, a discovery, a historical book that I didn't know about. That's fantastic. I wonder what it'll be like. I wonder who Elizabeth Stewart Phelps was. Actually, let's find out who she was. She grew up in Andover, Massachusetts, the daughter of Andover Theological Seminary professor Austin Phelps. Oh, okay. All right, well, I've read Austin Phelps. And the popular children's novelist Elizabeth Stewart Phelps. Okay, so Phelps published her first works when she turned 20, but she achieved literary renown with The Gates Ajar, which came out in 1868, a best-selling novel. And The Gates Ajar was such a best-selling novel that it had sequels. Beyond the Gates Between, and a stage play called Within the Gates. Okay, so there's a whole literary phenomenon here. Okay, I must have read about this woman before. I must have. Okay, all right. She also contributed to a novel at the turn of the 20th century called The Whole Family that was a collaborative thing, and one of the authors involved was William Dean Howells, and I know about that. So the more I learn about her, the more I'm going to realize that she has been a running presence in lots of books that I've read. But to read her own work, what a thrill. How fantastic. All right, and then we have the last one. This is truly the last book of the last mail haul of the week. This one has been much greater variety than the first one. So what have we got here? It's one of these vacuum pack things where you have to tear the package into little index card size pieces, because they are adhesive on the inside. So even once you've prized the book out, you still have to make confetti out of the package, or it will stick to everything around it. And if you hear a tone of irritation in my voice, that tone of irritation is actually true. I'm mainly irritated that I cannot order the state execution of the person who thought this up. But what are you going to do? Laws. So what have we got here? Oh, okay, all right. This is a finished copy that comes out in mid-June. Looks like a thriller. I think we saw this already. I think this is a finished copy of something that we saw already. This is by Louise Candlish, and it's called Those People. She did Our House, that had a lot of word of mouth. Our House did well. This summer, her latest thriller poses the question, could your neighbors make you angry enough to kill? I think we saw this already. A domestic suspense author continuously published to rave reviews in her native UK. Louise Candlish's U.S. debut, Our House, was one of summer of 2018's most talked about thrillers. That's absolutely true. That was everywhere. The novel received glowing blurbs and was named a library read selection chosen by librarians nationwide. What do they know? Now, with Those People, Candlish delves further into the lives of homeowners in her own devious way, asking the question, could your neighbors make you angry enough to kill? For the families on Lowland Way, the street is idyllic. A newly sought-after street, good schools are nearby, and the neighbors all get along swimmingly. The street even receives some press for starting a weekly outdoor open play event for children. Young couple Anthony and Emily have moved in recently with their infant son. Two brothers and their families live next door to each other. Sissy Watkins, who's lived on the block for years, runs a successful B&B out of her home. It's the epitome of the suburban dream. Sounds dreadful. That is until Darren and Jody move in. Immediately they become the scourge of the block. They're rude, they're antagonistic, they blast loud music until the wee hours of the morning. They also run a seemingly off-the-books car repair business taking up all the street parking space. Tensions reach a fever pitch in the neighborhood which can escalate to threats of violence. But they wouldn't, right? This is, I assume, taking place in America. They would escalate to threats of litigation. And those threats of litigation would work. They would be successful. It'd take about a year, and then it'd be done with. So it would, and when someone is killed, accusations start flying. When the police question everyone on the block, secrets about the neighbors and secrets between them start to come to light. Perhaps the residents of Lowland Way aren't who they seem. Or they might be exactly who they seem. Oh, goodness. Oh, my. All right. Well, this is a finished copy of a thriller. I am always up for a thriller. And this is coming out soon. This is mid-June, so I'm not going to get any other copies. I'm not going to get other reminders. So I'll just read this. And I think I'll probably read it soon. I have still a huge amount of writing to do today and tomorrow, so I'm probably in the mood for a thriller tonight or tomorrow night. This is the candidate that's right on the launch pad. So there you go. We have, let's see, how are we going to do a Steve Pile from this position? We have Those People, a thriller. We have The Unsettling of Europe, forthcoming history of waves of immigration in Europe, and which could not be more timely, unfortunately. Then Imaginary Friend, a big horror novel by Stephen Chbosky, the author of The Perks of Being a Wallflower. So those of you who have read and loved The Perks of Being a Wallflower, I don't know anybody who's read it and hasn't loved it, but those of you who've read and loved it, is he the type of author that I started out at the beginning of this video talking about? Has he built up an escrow account of goodwill with you to the point where you will read anything he does? Or was it particularly that book and you're a little leery of lightning striking twice in the same place? I'm curious to know. And then speaking of lightning striking twice in the same place, we have David Kirby's new book, When They Come For You. This is the author of Death at Seaworld, a terrific book. If you ever see it, you should read it. Then we have The Gates Ajar by Elizabeth Stewart Phelps. An incredibly best-selling Civil War novel from 1868. Penguin Classics, at their best, opening your perceptions up. I just love it. They do it continuously, and I love it. And Jennifer Snow's the first in a new series, a Wild River novel called An Alaskan Christmas, with a really good premise. We'll see if she delivers. But this is, in fact, the last mail haul of the week. So you just imagine in your minds putting 2 copies of Vasily Grossman's Stalingrad on top of there, and that's it. So that's all for now. I'm going to sign off from this weird otherworldly light, but I will be back. Thank you, BookTube.